Hey there, welcome back to Fantastic Mr. Fox. We're going to be reading chapter 6. Now there began a desperate race, the machines against the foxes. In the beginning, the hill looked like this. See the hills? After about an hour, as the machine bit away more and more soil from the hilltop, it looked like this. Sometimes the foxes would gain a little ground and a clunking noise would go fainter. And Mr. Fox would say, "We are going to make it." "I'm sure we are." But then a few moments later, the machines would come back at them and the crunch of the mighty shovels would get louder and louder. Once the foxes actually saw the sharp metal edge of one of the shovels as it scraped up the earth just behind them. That's scary. "Keep going, my darling," panted Mr. Fox. "Don't give up." "Keep going," the fat Bargus shouted to Bones and Bean. "We will get him any moment now." "Have you caught sight of him yet?" Bean called back. "Not yet," shouted Bargus, "but I think you are close." "I will pick him up with my bucket," shouted Bones. "I will chop him into pieces." But by lunchtime the machines were still at it, and so were the poor foxes. The hill now looked like this. The farmers didn't stop for lunch. They were too keen to finish the job. "Hey there, Mr. Fox," yelled Buns, leading out of his tractor. "We are coming to get you now." "You have had your last chicken," yelled Bogus. "You will never come prowling around my farm again." A sort of madness had taken hold of these three men. The tall skinny Bean and the dwarfed pot-bellied Buns were driving the machines like maniacs, racing the motors and making the shovels dig at a terrific speed. The fat Bargus was hopping about like a dervish and shouting faster and faster. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this is what had happened to the hill. Do you see it, Kate? The hole the machine had dug was like the crater of a volcano. It was such an extraordinary sight that crowds of people came rushing out from the surrounding villages to have a look. They stood on the edge of the crater and stared down at Bargus and Buns and Beans. "Hey there, Bargus, what's going on?" "We are after a fox." "You must be mad." The people cheered and laughed, but this only made the three farmers more furious and more obstinate and more determined than ever not to give up until they had caught the fox. Chapter 7. We will never let him go. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Bean switched off the motor of his tractor and climbed down from the driver's seat. Buns did the same. Both men had enough. They were tired and stiff from driving the tractors all day. They were also hungry. Slowly they walked over to the small fox's hole in the bottom of the huge crater. Bean's face was purple with rage. Buns was cursing the fox with dirty words that cannot be printed. Ooh. Bargus was waddling up. "Dang and blast the filthy stinking fox," he said. "What the heck do we do now?" "I'll tell you what we don't do," Bean said. "We don't let him go." "We will never let him go," Buns declared. "Never, never, never," cried Bargus. "Did you hear that, Mr. Fox?" Bean, bending low and shouting down the hole. "It's not over yet, Mr. Fox. We are not going home till we have strung you up dead as a dingbat." Whereupon the three men shook hands with one another and swore a solemn oath that they would not go back to their farms until the fox was caught. "What's the next move?" asked Buns, the potted dwarf. "We are sending you down the hole to fetch him up," said Bean. "Down you go, you miserable midget." "Not me!" screamed Buns, running away. Bean made a sickly smile. When he smiled, you saw his scarlet gums. You saw more gums than teeth. "Then there's only one thing to do," he said. "We starve him. We camp here day and night, watching the hole. He will come out in the end. He will have to." So Bargus and Buns and Beans sent messages down to their farms asking for tents, sleeping bags, and supper. Chapter 8. The Foxes Begin to Starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill, one for Bargus, one for Buns, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Bargus had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Buns had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Bargus picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we are so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Burns and Bain switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them onto the hole. "Now," said Bain, "we will take it in turn to keep watch. One watches while 2 sleep, and so on all through the night." Bargus said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side?" "You didn't think of that one, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretended he had. "Go on, then tell us the answer," said Bargus. Beans picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men have you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, Bargus said. "I've got 36, Buns said. "And I've got 37, Bean said. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape for Mr. Fox." So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of other horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed for any other animal, to escape from the hill. The next day, the watching and waiting went on. Bargus and Buns and Beans sat upon small stools, staring, starting at, staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They are still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that man Bean a mile away. He stinks." We finished chapter 8, and I'll see you tomorrow with chapter 9. Hope you enjoyed. Bye, guys.